chord, and then that'll give you a chance to center as you take us through a centering exercise, which I will then probably steal and use on my Tuesday sessions.
Well, I'm sure that you're probably already doing the same things that I do. I've been finding that out a lot lately. But yeah, let's center ourselves by first, trying to relax our shoulders a little bit, hold our head up, close your eyes. Take that first deep breath, take it in slow. And let it out, release. Again. Let it out. Clear your head. Feel your shoulders relaxing. Feel your mind clearing. And that's right. Now you're breathing at your own pace. Slowly in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose. Out slowly through your mouth. Good. Now slowly open your eyes. Come back.
There you are. You have a chilled audience now, and hopefully you chilled yourself.
I don't know if it helped you, but it sure helped me.
It did me. I was going to be really aggressive at the start. Now I'm really calm and chilled. I won't be. Okay, so Rick Butler, you're based in Chicago, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. And you started Aikido when?
I started Aikido in about 1979. Here in Chicago with Fumio Toyota, Shihan Fumio Toyota, founder of the Aikido Association of America. And I started after being invited to a demonstration by a friend, and I really did not want to go. I thought that Aikido was one of the worst arts that anybody could possibly choose, because I had a karate background, and mind you, at this time I was in college, and years before, I had seen Aikido as a teenager and just thought it was too choreographed, and I guess I would call it at that time a wuss art. And I just, there was nothing to it to me. And so I begged him not to go. I begged him to let me teach him karate, but he wanted to see this guy. Mostly at that time, he wanted to see this black guy because he'd never seen a black guy doing Aikido. And there was a guy, his name was Garrett Hawkins. And he was going to be with Shihan Toyota at the time doing the demonstration. So I went to see that. And while I watched, I sat up there and formed all these opinions about Aikido. And they called everybody down to be, anybody that wanted to participate to be part of a demonstration. And so I went down with the intention that I was going to clock this guy. And I was going to, and I went down and I tried, and I could not hit him. He would just move. And I couldn't understand it. So my friend, he thought it was the greatest thing, but he did not join. I did. I started taking Aikido from that moment on, and partially with the ulterior motive of, trying to debunk it, to figure out what was it about? What was, I just could not get with it. And so I stayed with it. And, it was strange because I was pretty good at karate, but there was something that was lacking, and it was the spiritual connection. That's what it was.
So you found karate before Aikido.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of obviously, I get the idea that the martial aspect of that was important. Can you give us a bit of background on why that was important?
Yeah. The martial background to it was, I think, watching it, as I said, I couldn't get it initially, when I first went, because, mind you, at that time, for some of you that are on here old enough to remember the Bruce Lee craze.
I actually meant on the karate, actually, Rick. So
yeah, well, that's where I'm going.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, the Bruce Lee craze, it was something different. It was, that the arts itself, the discipline that was there, the control that was there. And I was growing up in a section of Chicago that was pretty rough, but it spoke to me in other ways. Now, I started off in karate actually in New Orleans, Louisiana, another area. But my mom moved to Chicago, and when I got to Chicago, I really got deep into the art because, again, I was growing up in a place where I was now the new kid again, and I needed to be able to defend myself, along with some other things that was going on in personal life. I needed to know how to defend myself. And so, but it spoke to me. What really got to me was the different types of martial arts and how graceful they are. They all had some of the same things in common, but discipline was the biggest thing that they had in common. That and that feeling that you could accomplish anything, with it. So, and then later on, as I said, the spiritual side of Aikido really connected with me. Because that's not something I was trying to follow with karate.
Right.
And with the karate, it was more, like I said, Bruce Lee craze, style and profile. I'm going to be so busy looking good while I do this and everything, watching all the karate movies and being cool and, all that good stuff that was going on. And the spiritual side just wasn't there.
So did you give karate up and do Aikido, or did you do the two of them alongside each other for a while?
Initially, I tried to do both, but you can't serve two masters. Not like that, at least. Karate side to me, was deeply ingrained in me. It was deeply ingrained in me, and it took me a while to really begin to practice Aikido. Initially, like most people, I'm just learning techniques and I'm trying to figure out things to add to my repertoire of how to take somebody out or to, do things, but was not what it is today. Definitely. It took some years for that to start, developing. And so as I practiced Aikido more, I, started practicing karate less, but it was still there. And what karate did for me was give me a foundation in learning form. And it gave me a foundation in being focused a certain way when I'm doing things, the discipline that it takes, to do that, especially when you're doing a kata or something like that. And so, but what was not there was my ability to really control me in certain situations.
So within
in other words, I was prepared to give anger, and with the karate and with the Aikido, it was not there. With the Aikido, I didn't have to give anger for anger. In fact, the job was to not do that. So.
Yeah. So when did it sort of transition for you from a path to look after yourself and preserve your space to a path that was bigger than that, that involved others, that this more spiritual path?
I think that it was at least 4 years, 5 years getting into it. I mean, it was coming all along, but when I really started paying attention to what I was doing and to where I wanted to go, it was about 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
So, but I think that there's this thing that was about me at the time. I wanted to do this for a variety of reasons, and in my background has always been being about helping other people to enhance their quality of life. And I began to look at Aikido as that, as that way of doing that. I mean, I started off initially with karate. I started teaching that when I was about 16 years old to kids in my basement, to try and get them to step away from being in a gang, or not even go towards being in gangs, or not doing some things that were detrimental, to the future. And so I would choreograph fights and do all kinds of stuff to do that. But it wasn't so much, like it was when I got older, which was, I wanted to really teach people how to modify their behavior or change their behavior to something that was going to enhance their quality of life. I wanted to teach them how to become very focused on accomplishing their goals.
So you said that after 4 or 5 years, you kind of knew the path you wanted to take. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the path you want to take is? I'm sure you're still walking it.
Oh, yeah, every day, a work in progress. So, yeah, that path, as I said, was about helping people to enhance their quality of life. I was in the corporate world, and I got a chance to see a lot of different things, and how it affected, Black people. I was in mortgage banking business, and with the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, Freddie Mac, during that period, and then leaving there and started my own nationwide mortgage service and consulting firm. And I just saw, what was going on there and what was going on in the neighborhoods, and why weren't, Black people more in different areas of life, prospering in certain parts of society. And a lot of it had to do with discipline, what was being taught in the schools, and not having been exposed to different things. And so I set out to do that through Aikido. So it took me a while before I actually walked away from the corporate world, but I was teaching all while I was in the corporate world, and using the principles and things that I was learning in Aikido in the business community. As part of what I did with Freddie Mac, I got a chance to talk to a lot of executives and talk to people about changing lives, and about some of the things that we do. So the Aikido was at the heart of it.
So you were quite innovative then, because not many people were doing. I mean, I imagine that was 20 or 30 years ago. Is that right?
Oh yeah, definitely. That was I was doing that in 1985.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been more than.
So you were a real innovator then. What difference did it make to those corporations? They kept coming back to you, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think of myself as an innovator. I just thought of myself as just doing what Rick Butler does. So, I think that compliment and the comments that I got, during that period was, when I'm around you, I feel so calm. I feel so in touch. I see things differently. Why do you approach it that way? Or why did you approach something that way? And so, yeah, it wasn't about being an innovator. It was about making the job easier. It was about getting people to connect and open up. And the principles that I was teaching, they were, basically the four principles, that we learn in Aikido, but as time was going on, I was beginning to modify them to where people could use them in their daily life, without learning the art of Aikido, but just how they navigated through life.
Yeah.
And so everything that I teach currently is based on, helping people to be able to accomplish their goals, and those principles are connected to their academic, professional, and personal life.
Sure. So, I mean, you kind of started at one end, which is, in a way, what you were doing is helping the rich get richer. And at some point, you kind of turned that around, and now you're helping those that are not so fortunate get some breaks at last. So how did that transition?
It transitioned. First, I was working with kids and adults, and I was working. Well, let me back up a little bit. That corporate world that I was in. Sorry, I am going to have to stop for 1 second. 1 second. I didn't realize that my computer was just telling me the battery was low.
No worries.
Okay, I'm good now. All right.
This is going to be like an episode of Batman, is it? Where you suddenly disappear at the same time, same place next week.
Yeah, but no, I was in the corporate world working first with Freddie Mac and other mortgage companies, and then I started my own business. And what I was doing, had begun to do, was I was negotiating with clients on not being in their office so that I could be able to teach more often than evening, because if I was in another city, I couldn't be with my students, because I was beginning to get involved in their personal lives because of the students that I was teaching. Now, not all of them were coming from, from bad backgrounds or anything like that, or disparate areas, but they all had the same types of problems dealing with life. And so I made myself more and more available to them, so I got a chance to really see what they were going through. Then, and after having a talk with my pastor and other people, I was looking at how people were beginning to view me. And he said, Rick, everybody that is a minister isn't in a pulpit. He said, you're changing lives. And so he said, so I began to feel that my mat was a sacred space. And because of the impact I could have right there on that mat. And so I slowly began to phase out my business and go towards teaching full time, with the goal, as I said, of helping people to minimize the chaos and stress in their daily life. The one thing that all of my students, whether they were a bank president, a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, or kids, they all were dealing with the same thing, which was stress. And I would teach them that stress is a killer. It's a slow killer for kids, but a faster killer for adults. And so the Aikido was a way of helping them to learn how to be calm in the midst of chaos, for them to get challenged to do something different. But it also helped them to slow down where they were at. When they got on the mat, life began to slow down a different way for them, and they could learn how to focus on something different, and then take that ability to do it on the mat out into their regular life. Yeah. So that's where, that's how it started.
So were you running an Aikido club at this stage? Or have you
Say
never
that
actually, were you running your own dojo at this stage, or have you never actually done that?
Okay, have my own dojo?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had a dojo.
Yeah.
I've taught through park districts. I've taught at universities, and then had my own dojo, which was actually located in the Japanese Culture Center here in Chicago, at one of their locations. And had a dojo, nice size dojo. I was really, really blessed with this space that I really didn't pay for, but it was, and was able to have anybody in the community take part in it, with very little cost. So running a dojo, I loved it. The only part that you don't love about running a dojo is when you have to deal with the business aspect of it.
Okay, so at what point did you launch the Pathway to Harmony project?
Well, it started off as the Pathway to Harmony program, Pathway to Harmony Aikido program.
Yep.
I started that in '97, about '97, as I was winding down the company. And at that time, I had in mind that I was going to work mostly with young people because of things that were going on here in the city, the violence that was happening in the community. And while I had adults in the class, class with me, my focus was going to be on young people. So the Pathway to Harmony Aikido program was set up so that kids would know how to handle stress, and would learn how to not give violence for violence in the responses for the things that they did. And so I began to, I use that platform as the Aikido program to say that you're not going to only learn about Aikido, so that I could focus on interpersonal skills development. I could talk to them about school. We could have a class where it was based on something that was going on inside of their school, but then teach the principles of Aikido and how you would have dealt with that. And so some classes were just like being in a college setting where they're talking and have learning the philosophical side of Aikido rather than,
Right.
all you did was come in, roll, throw people. We would do our exercise and everything so that you could get that physical side out of the way. But then it was sit down and begin to communicate. It was learning communication skills and things that would hinder them. Because what I found out is that we have some brilliant kids, really super, super intelligent kids, but a lot of times they don't have the social skills necessary to take them to the next level or allow them to even, put those skills to get use. So they had anger issues or different things that was going on with them. So how do we move past that so that now they can, they can do what they need to do to move ahead? And so that's what the Aikido program was. And after time passed by, so that was in about 1997. And the program was growing inside the community. And I never advertised for the program.
Did the kids find you or did you find the kids?
Kids, churches, people found me. When I, you probably, this already, Quentin, that, I talk about God a lot. So when I got ready to move away from the corporate world and knowing that I was going to enter into an area where I was not going to make money, more than likely, I asked God to send me people that I could help and people that could help my program. And that's something that he's never stopped doing. And so I saw that, also learned that there were a lot of kids that just weren't going to totally connect to Aikido, but they still needed help. So as that was going on, I started developing other programs. And when I was developing those programs, they fell into the umbrella of Pathway to Harmony, Inc. So I created, in 2006, I created Pathway to Harmony, Inc. What its purpose was to address the chaos and the apathy, the frustration, the anger, the violence in the community, by teaching people how to become very focused on accomplishing those academic, professional, personal goals.
Yeah.
And so under that umbrella, I started a program I started off with a program we called Phase, which was Pathway to Harmony Aikido Summer Enrichment. And inside of that program, we would teach, we would get kids at 7:30 in the morning and release them at about 5 o'clock in the evening. So they were with me all day, and they would get a chance to go to museums, to City Hall, to the financial district, to see plays. Everything, we wanted to expose them to everything that they would need to make them a more well-rounded person, but also to help them mainly to find their passion. So we created passion days. We had physicists, doctors, lawyers, paleontologists, people that, from every walk of life, hip hop artists, graphic art designers. For one day, they would come in and talk to them about their passion. And then, let kids see what happens when a person finds their passion, how easy it is to learn and how you really want to do this. And at the same time, every day they would come in, they start off the day in the morning with bowing in. And they bow in, they sit there, and they had to do breathing meditation. After breathing meditation, they do their exercise. After exercise, they would learn financial literacy. They would have a class in nonviolent conflict resolution. They would have a class in Aikido. And, so that was how the day went. They got their Aikido class. So we did that for the summer, and it got noticed by, the media. And so when it got noticed by the media, of course, that brought more people. And we ended up creating a healthy eating and exercise program because so many of the kids were obese, or their families were dealing with diabetes and other kind of health issues. So healthy eating and exercising, an exercising and gardening program, a cooking class. We started cooking classes. So the program's development all under Pathway to Harmony Inc. And so
I have to tell you, it's just remarkably, you don't want to claim you're an innovator, but you have been remarkably innovative. So for you, all of this stuff's all related to Aikido.
Everything's related to Aikido.
Yeah, I've spent the year going into different subjects and trying to open up windows for people to see everything's linked to Aikido at the end of the day. You kind of did it all in one program, which is remarkable. All these things that people wouldn't necessarily associate with it. You've done, I was going on your website, you've got this special cooking program. So people are coming on there looking at Pathway to Harmony. The cooking class. So talk about that a little bit. I know you mentioned that good nutrition is important, but what's its relationship to Aikido for you?
Well, everything is related to Aikido by the enhancement of your quality of life, the elimination of stress. And what are the things that we stress about, and if you're going to get your mind right, you have to eat right. If you're going to get your body right, you have to begin to eat right. And so that's the connection to that, to it. The nutrition part of it is one of the problems in our community, not just the Black community, but in every community, is nutrition, what we eat. And so it's a way of educating kids and adults about, about their bodies and what's really going on and why they feel like they feel. For a lot of the Black kids or the people of color, my Latino students, there was a good period of time where they would, where the answer to everything was to put them on, they were labeled, first of all, having attention deficit. They were problems, they can't do this and they can't do that. And then after studies would find that wasn't that they couldn't focus, it was about what they were eating that kept them from being able to focus. Because these kids, not knowing any better, would stop off and get flaming hots or whatever kind of stuff and juice bottles in the morning, and they're hyped up with sugar and everything. And so them learning about the things that can impact on how they behave, how they think, but not just for them, but for their parents to learn this. We started it through that program, through healthy eating and exercising. So, and again, the Aikido, the thing about doing Aikido, and I watched, saw a session earlier, how you can slow down the movements of Aikido, almost like Tai Chi, and it becomes very challenging. And kids love a good challenge, adults love a good challenge. And so when they see that when they're eating right, they can even do things better, And so, some of the students were already athletes, and between them eating right and learning the graceful flowing motions of Aikido, they became better athletes. And so that's connected in there. So so the nutrition was a big thing. One of the other big things that came out of the program was the financial literacy, because right now I have kids that they have Robinhood on their apps, their phones, and they're doing something that I rarely do. They're investing in cryptocurrency. They've learned all this stuff through the financial literacy program. They've written business plans, for what they want to do in the future, but it's all geared towards, them having a mission, And I know you haven't asked me about this yet, but in every program, they start off, "Why are you doing this?" And it is about being able to enhance their quality of life, which is them having to connect to the mission that I give every student when they first come into the program, whether they're a child or an adult. And the mission that they have to be able to say to me is, "Sensei, my mission every day is to enhance my quality of life." Because when I enhance my quality of life, I automatically enhance the quality of life of my family, my community, and the world, all because I made myself better. And so then, to motivate them even further, they learn that to say, 150 years from now, my great-great-great-grandchildren will say that I stand on the shoulders of and name everybody back to me and what I'm doing today to build the foundation for their future. And this is the fourth principle that I teach, which is have a strong foundation. So everything is always connected, and again, it stems out of the Aikido principles that we learn, which, as I said, I modified.
So I'm guessing that you've probably seen some pretty angry people when they arrive. And I don't think the first thing that would come out of their mouth is, "I'm here to improve my life, because when I improve my life, I improve that of others." So how do you get them to that point so that they start to listen?
Example by example. You're right. I've had my van windows knocked out. I've experienced family members that were not happy because I had taught their children something that caused them to not want to be part of their lifestyle. And the biggest thing, Quentin, about all of us, is I believe we're energy beings. And, when you connect to a person's energy, it's hard to be angry at somebody that's not giving you anger. You can start off that way. When I talk to parents about, or if I talk to an adult about what it is that I'm trying to do, they see the value in it. I tell them, first of all, I'm not trying to teach your child, to fight or how to fight or how to beat somebody. I'm trying to teach them how to look for win-win solutions in life. I tell them, Aikido is not how you think of a martial art. It is not that. It is not, in competition with anything or anybody. And so I tell them, I teach a philosophy of resolving every situation in the most harmonious, peaceful way, bringing the least amount of harm to my attacker while I'm defending myself. I get to control me. I get to control me. And in the Black community, especially, you don't want to be anybody's slave. You don't want to be anybody's puppet. And this will teach you how to not be that slave, or puppet. This will teach you how to be in control of your own life. So in other words, I'm teaching and constantly talking about empowerment. Empowerment.
You must have thousands of anecdotal stories of the success and progress that your students have made. Have you done anything to scientifically measure the success?
No, I've been asked that so many times. Especially, if you ever want funding for anything, they need, proof. I just haven't been focused on doing it. I told you that I don't chase money, so I mean, it's good to be able to do that, but a lot of times I don't even know how I'm impacting on somebody until they tell me later. And as we've talked before, you've had that same experience, and I imagine, most instructors have had those same kinds of stories, not knowing just how much of an impact you had on somebody. But no, I've never tried to measure it. And I do have the stories, but there are other people that are trying to. So,
do you know what? I really think you would serve the community well if you got those students to write those stories down for you, because they're so rich.
Yeah.
And really, you're showing where Aikido can go if it's applied properly, and you're making a huge difference, obviously, to these people's lives. And to have other people see that would be wonderful, because I think lots of people would follow your example then. Much of the work you're doing, I would imagine, is not cheap to do. So how do you get funding for the programs?
The biggest resource that I have is my belief in God and faith that He's going to take care of, give me what I need. I don't, I'm not saying I don't want money, because I definitely would love to have financial, income. It's just that I don't let it stop me from doing the things that I need to do. And so
you don't strike me as somebody who's motivated by money at all. What I meant was your programs. I mean, if you're going to take kids
how are
to
they
the
funded?
theater, if you're going to teach them cooking, you're bringing people in with skills. Now, how does that happen?
It happens because where I was going with this is about my faith, my belief that God will send me what I need. And there are people that I can pick up the phone, and because of what I've done, because of I've maybe helped a person in their family, help them or something like that, and they want to give back. They know, most of my students know that I won't ask them for something unless I really need it. And when I really generally need it, it's because I'm trying to help somebody else. It's not for me personally. And so they ask, Sensei, can I do this for you? Can I do this? What do you need, Sensei? And I say, I'll let you know when I need it. I don't know. And so generally for the cooking class, I have several nutritionists and a couple of organizations that people in those organizations were students or their child or somebody, and they share those resources. So I say all the time that I don't need money. I need God and His resources, and He's got infinite resources. So I've got infinite resources too, when I really need it, if it's something that I need to do. So I just go finally ask somebody, and that's it. Having said that, it does not mean that we don't need money. It's just that I don't take the time to go out and look for it. It generally just shows up. Yeah.
You're like the kids. Impressive. So, you're doing this wonderful work. How are you going to make sure that this carries on when you're not there? You must. This is your legacy. This is the foundation.
Well, as I've gotten older, I am now 63, and I've been doing Aikido for 43 years, somewhere up in there. Martial arts altogether, close to 50 years. And one of the things that, when you're young and you think that you're, practically immortal and you don't plan, well, unfortunately, that's kind of what I've done. I have not planned for my financial future or anything. And I know I should have, but God did bless me with not only resources, but a beautiful wife that really helps me. You know, there's so many things that I could not do without her support, you know, time wise, because she sacrifices her time and she helps me financially, you know, not that she's rich or anything like that too. It's just that that's where everything comes from. So how my legacy, I always looked at, I was never trying to build a big school or a lot of whatever. I just wanted to be able to teach the few that could teach the many, who would do the work.
So have you got a
And
few
so,
that will teach the many off when you can't do this anymore? Are there a few that will carry this on?
yeah, so there are a few people that have been with me and around me long enough and know enough about Pathway and what my vision is for it that have told me that they would try to make sure that it's continued on. And so right now I'm actually, I've got a board and, you know, they're looking at the ways to make this continue on and possibly go after some of that funding that is apparently out there that, you know, that people use to take care of nonprofits and stuff like that. So, so I'm sure that it's going to continue. I've talked to several people about their interest in it and looking at how it could grow, who we can help. And because of all the things that we are faced with today, especially with COVID, you know, what we do is so necessary. What we do is so necessary. Not just from that physical self-defense perspective that people think about, but how to take care of ourselves mentally. You know, because there are people that experience COVID that don't have people around them, that they had to isolate by themselves and deal with things that they never thought that they would have to deal with. And what's being taught through Aikido or through my program is how, you know, to be in control of you, how to flow with energy, how to deal with adversity, you know. And so we need this kind of program, and you know, or the programs that are connected to Aikido, and that spirit that's inside of us that says that we want to be a blessing to somebody else. You know, so my students get that. You know.
I would say that you've had to sacrifice a lot to do this. You'll probably tell me that you're more than rewarded for what you do. You get back what you put in. But it does occur to me that it's not only self-sacrifice, it does impact on your family life. So how do you make sure that you observe the boundaries within your family?
Wow, Quentin, that was one of the hardest things, and that is a hard thing to do. Initially, it's much easier now because my kids are grown now. So now it is about my life with my wife, because we're basically empty nesters, except for the fact that I have a lot of kids that look at me as a godfather or as a big brother or, you know, something like that, a mentor. But at one time, you're right, it was hard because I looked at what I do as being sacred. You know, my wife, the Chicago Tribune interviewed me, and the reporter asked my wife about how does she deal with me being gone a lot. And she said to them, and this totally surprised me because I didn't know that she thought like this. She said, well, I never try to block anybody's blessing. And every time I meet somebody, they say, oh, your husband, Sensei, he's such a blessing. And she said, and when they say that, you know, she said that, so whenever somebody called, whether they called me at midnight or, you know, whenever, to help deal with a family issue, you know, domestic dispute or whatever was going on, she'd say, go. And so there was no real boundary initially. I was just, you know, my kids knew what the mission was, and they accepted it, that that's my life and that's their life, for me to be a catalyst for positive change, helping people to enhance their quality of life. That's the mission. The purpose is to always serve God. My last name is Butler, servant to man.
So your wife was your blessing.
When I said, Lord, send me people that can help, he sent her. Somebody that understood, somebody that got me, that told me that I didn't have to change in order to be married. So I'm blessed.
Okay. Have you been approached by people elsewhere in America that would like your help to sort of set up similar programs?
I've talked to people that want to do something, like that. And I've been asked by a couple of business people about setting up a program, setting up satellites or programs. But again, because my head was not there, to look at this as this big business, when I walked away from the corporate life, when I really did walk away from corporate thinking, corporate life. It wasn't going to be about the numbers. It wasn't going to be about the money. It was just going to be about trying to accomplish a goal. And I've been told by politicians who wanted me to do things for political reasons, that I could help a lot more people. But for me, the trade-off of time was too great. The trade-off was, so I haven't done it. Now, because I'm older and things have slowed down a little bit more, my mind is more open towards doing things. And, I don't have to have the credit for what I do, as long as the mission is accomplished. People's lives are enhanced. Their quality of life is enhanced. So if that happens, then God knows, I stayed with the mission. Yeah. So that's what's important. So there are people that, when they contact me, I do what I do all the time. I freely give. I help where I can help. And that's it.
So is there anything else you'd like to tell us that I should have asked and forgot?
Not necessarily. Well, let me just say this. Everything that I've done is because of somebody else. I could not have accomplished any of what I've been able to do, without the help of so many people who are like-minded people. Or, as you said, those kids that were angry, or even some of those adults that were angry, those became my greatest, supporters. Those people that really know what it means to change their behavior, or to change how they think, because they were living a certain life. They were trapped in that life and how they were thinking. They learned how to free themselves up or empower themselves to think, about a better life, and so I wish that I could talk more about them and what they've accomplished with their lives.
Well, actually, you've taken me beautifully to what I would like to make my last question before I open it up to everybody else. So I am absolutely sure that there are many, many people and stories that have really touched your heart over the years. You've been blown away by the transformation. Tell us the one that means the most to you, or one of them. I'm sure there's just so many, but if you could pick one.
Wow, that is a really hard one. But I think that one that gets me is, there's a question that people ask me, they say, well, what about the students, that you don't reach? What about your failures, the things that where you weren't successful? And I tell them that I can't say that I've had a failure. And they say, well, why not? Because they think that I'm not being a person at that point, and because I'm not God, I don't know when what I've done in their lives is going to kick in. So that brings me to the story of a young man that I had not seen for 19 years, that I had taught. And I was on a bus with a group of kids. We had been to the museum, the Art Museum of Chicago. And, you know, and when you take kids out in public, you know, and you've got a group of them, you've got to watch them. You've got to be very aware of your surroundings and who's coming in contact. So I noticed this guy watching the kids and watching me, and he kept watching. So I got up and I positioned myself between him and the kids, just in case, you know, he's not stable. But anyway, I turned my back a little bit towards him, but I was still watching him. And he said, "Mr. Butler." He didn't say sensei. He said, "Mr. Butler." And I turned and looked at him. He said, "I see you still at it. You're still doing it." And I looked at him again, and his face started looking familiar, but it's 19 years later. And he says his name. And then I remembered. But that kid had been in prison, had been in jail because he had been part of a gang. And, you know, while he was a really good kid in church and everything, that night he had to carry a gun, and there was an altercation with another group, and he ended up shooting somebody, you know, and he ended up in jail. And I had not talked to him, and I said, "Wow," I say, "it's good to see you," you know, but that was the last time I had seen him. And so I said, "How are things going?" And he said, "It's great." And he said, I said, "But I thought you were in prison and everything." And he said, "Well, I got out." He said, "But unfortunately, when I got out, you know, I went around some of the same people, and I got shot, and I was paralyzed from my neck down." He said, I laid there for 2 years, not being able to move from my neck down." He said, "I thought about a lot of the things that you taught, a lot of things that you said. And I said to myself, if I ever got up and walked again, you know, I would follow some of those things." And he said, "God allowed me to walk again." He said, "I just want to tell you, thank you." He said, "Because now I have 2 beautiful daughters. I have 2 businesses." And he just gave me a number of different things. And he said, "So I appreciate what you did for me back then." He said, "It took me a while to get it, but now I know. And so thank you." So again, I didn't know what happened to that kid. I didn't know when what I was teaching was going to pop, you know, connect. And eventually it did. It did it in God's time. So I never say that I failed to reach anybody, because I don't know what God's plan is, his time frame. But the prayer was to send me people I can help, not people I might be able to help. So if they got to me, I was going to be able to help them somehow. I just don't know how.
That's a truly beautiful story. Probably my favorite of the year. So thank you for that. I'd like to open it up to everybody else to ask any questions, which I hope there are going to be lots of. So if you've got something to say, would you like to stick your hand up? Rob.
First, thank you for the work that you do. I'm kind of surprised being in Chicago that, you know, Oprah didn't find you, you know, and put you on her show and bring in, you know, the kind of donations that would generate. You strike me, there's a distinction made between inspirational leaders and institutional leaders. And usually the idea is that all the, you know, great religions and all these, you know, great teachers are of this inspirational quality and have very little interest in franchising themselves or in creating an institution that, you know, isn't really just, they want to be in the trenches teaching. They know what they're good at, and that's what they're good at. And then sometimes, you know, that teacher gets institutionalized after the teacher is gone. And that can be, you know, said to be true of, you know, Socrates, who we know something about because Plato and other students took notes. or Buddha, he didn't write anything down, but people took notes and then sort of became things. And Jesus didn't write a lot down, and some of his disciples took notes and told us about it later. How do you see your vision surviving you?
Wow. Are you finished?
Yeah, that's the question.
Okay.
That's enough of a question, I thought.
Well, it's not so much about one person. As I said, I wanted to teach the few that would teach the many.
Mhm.
And that feeling or that thing where everybody gets the same message, but then they interpret it differently. So I'm not sure of what the total legacy is going to be, but the principles that I teach, they can dissect that. And I guess, Quentin, you asked me, what question didn't you ask? The question that you probably did not ask was, how did you modify those 4 principles? What are those 4 principles that you teach that people resonate or follow? And so, and if you don't mind, I'll take time to go over it.
Floor's yours.
I teach. We all learn. Relax completely, extend ki, keep your 1 point, and body weight underside, and I modified them in a way that I felt people would find it and can apply it to their daily life. So they understand just the words relax completely. So I would say, I taught them relax completely, relax your mind so that you can think, relax your body so it's fluid. And that resonated. And then it got bigger. Relax your mind so that you can think, analyze the situation, and then do what's necessary for it. Relax your body that it's fluid and it can respond exactly to what your mind is asking it to do, no more, no less. When you relax both of them, you begin the process of empowering yourself, because now you become more aware. And that resonates with people. And so it goes a lot deeper than that, but that's the beginning. For extend ki, I switched it to stay focused. And that means have an agenda. Have an agenda so that you don't fall into somebody else's, because there's always somebody preparing one for you, whether you know it or not. Always work on your agenda. And when you're working on that agenda, always remember, somebody's going to tell you that you're selfish. They're going to say that you're too centered on this or that. But it's okay to be selfish when you're working on developing you, because after you've developed you, you'll be able to help somebody else. Third principle, which was being centered. Keep your 1 point. I tell them, take care of your mind, body, and spirit so that you can know what peace is. Take care of them equally so that you can know what peace is. Because when you focus too much on one or the other, you begin to create chaos or stress in your life somewhere. And that when you find peace, you find that peace is like a drug. And we know about drugs is that when you start on a drug, you want more of that drug. And so you want more peace in your life. And so, there. And the fourth principle is about having a strong foundation. Have a strong foundation just basically means learn the basic fundamentals of anything that you do so that you can always add more to you. Make it where it's easy for you to move in life, but hard for somebody else to move you, because you know who you are and whose you are. You know what you're about. You can't be gotten off your square because you know you. And the stronger you make your foundation, the more people you're going to be able to support. More people that can stand on your shoulders, and you'll be able to handle it without a problem. And so those 4 principles is what I've taught all of my students, and those that have been serious students, they've used them. I have a student right now that I love to talk about, as a success story. He started off wanting to design roller coasters because he thought how they were, but he wanted to do these visual things with roller coasters. And it turned out that really he wanted to be a visual artist. And so he went to college, and then he went to grad school. And while he was there, the person told him that you don't have an eye for this. You'll never be a graphic designer. You'll never be a visual artist because you just don't have the talent. And that like almost broke him. And he called me and we talked about it. And I talked to him about opinions and about him knowing who he is. And what I told him is that picture yourself as the client. Give yourself a project. And now go out and satisfy the client. And he took that fourth principle, about building his foundation. He took that principle of staying focused on his agenda. And he would work 12 to 14-hour days, just doing the projects for himself. And when he finished, I told him, I said, when you finish, you'll have your portfolio that they say no one would ever accept. He took that portfolio to a company. Immediately, he was making $50 an hour. He left that company, and he has done the visual effects with companies. He's done almost every Marvel movie, the CW, all kinds of things. Worked with hip hop artists and everything. For somebody that he was told that no one would ever hire him. He's used those principles. He used those principles every day to get where he is today. And he's doing pretty good.
I wonder if he's had the opportunity to go back and visit that teacher who said that.
I don't know, because I've taught him, I taught him that wasn't the point.
No,
it wasn't about that teacher.
But it's very tempting.
Yes, it is. But yeah, he's a success story. And he contacts me regularly. I mean, I talk to him maybe 2-3 times a week. And that's been for the last 15 years.
Amazing. Wonderful. Yeah. Has anybody else got a comment or a question? Judith, is that you? You want to say something?
Yes, I've unmuted. Thank you very much, Rick Sensei, for coming to speak with us. And I really respect your generosity of spirit. Now, going on to my question, last week you were here and you were talking about some people, when they first come on the mat, they've got this attitude that they always have to be dominant in every situation. And obviously, that's not the case. And you were saying, do you let them feel dominant? And I've come across people like this. And I was wondering if you had any advice on what a good way to react might be.
Well, I mean, it's happened before on the mat with me, where you have people that want to challenge you or challenge other students that have, kind of like a bully mentality, or a mentality where they've got to be seen. And you have to sometimes take them out of their comfort zone. And so their comfort zone is to be aggressive. And so that particular day, maybe, and this is funny because I've done this before. That particular day, we worked on something like touch, but you had to be able to touch in a non-aggressive way. And if you did that, then you were failing. And these people are competitive and they want to be on top. So now they're going to be softer than soft.
That's awesome.
So if they're trying to do this and they grab you, they go in like this, then they just failed. If the goal is how can you protect uke, What can you do to protect uke? Then they've got to learn a new skill, because before their skill was learning how to destroy uke. So it is about, in my classes, every one of my classes started at the very beginning with a talk. And we might talk about one of the principles, or start off talking about something that's happened in life and how you address it. But address it physically on the mat. So the question to them is, what kind of relationship do you want to have? You know, if you're going to do this dance, do you want each other, you know, stepping on each other's toes, or do you want to be smooth, you know, in your dance? And so, you know, don't be afraid to help each other. Don't be afraid to share what's creating the chaos. What's creating the chaos? And now, because you've identified it, you can begin to work on it. So those people, you know, if I just gave them a physical technique to do, they could dominate with that technique. They could throw you hard and they could do it. But that's not the goal. And so if I put the emphasis on something else rather than just doing the technique, now I'm beginning to change their behavior without me having to tell them that's what I'm actually doing.
Paul,
Thank you.
That, I guess the quick way of saying, where were you when I started Aikido? I would have been studying with you. You have a brilliant way of supplying the inside of the technique instead of just the shell. It's really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
anybody else? Vitali.
Just first of all, I wanted to say thank you. And I really admire what you've been doing during your life. And I just want to say, if you need any help, by all means and forms, and for example, getting connected through, because I treat word as there's no boundaries. And if you want me, for example, to get some, to bring some diversity in your programs or speak about anything, just use me as you would like to. If we can get connected through with Russia or anybody else in any kind, so I just offer you anything you need. And probably I will ask all you maybe in some form, because I'm thinking about setting up a program for kids in Russia in schools for teaching them to live with people with different abilities. Because, you know, they need to get educated in this way in order not to stare at people in wheelchair, just be feeling awkward being around us. And the same with kids who already got disability, and to help them to live their life in our world. So we're all together, we don't have any difference, we're all equal, and I think it's a great opportunity to do that. So, and thank you one more time. And anyway, just contact me, and anyhow I can help, I'll do that. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Vitaly. And what you just said about the kids in schools, I think that, you know, my instructor, Garrett Hawkins, he passed away from colorectal cancer. And, you know, before he died, you know, the last time I saw him, he told me, Rick, never forget, everything is about the kids. It begins with the kids. And I've kept that in my mind, that, you know, it's the kids. And in a conversation with the former mayor here in Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, I told him in a conversation that, you know, we have to really change how we teach kids, you know, what we do with kids, because we experience stress every day. But we have ways to handle that stress. They don't know how to handle stress. And, you know, every morning there's kids, you know, that are getting up, living inside of homes that are dysfunctional, because everybody's home is dysfunctional to some degree. They're dealing with something, whether they're rich, poor, black, white, Latino, Asian, it doesn't matter. There are issues that they have to deal with that create stress inside of them. Problem is that right now, we don't know how they process anything, because they've got this little phone, this little computer that gives them access to things that we don't know that's inside of their head. So we should be very mindful and intentional about what we do put inside of their head. And one of the things that we don't put in them is how to deal with stress, or how to handle what you just said, the diversity in the world. Not just racial diversity, but our physical diversity, how we view each other. And so one of the things that I created, one of the programs that I created had to do with teaching in the mornings, kids in the morning before they go to school, not before they go to school, but in school before they start their classes, how to become very centered, how to claim their day, so that they're empowered with a mission before they start learning. And as you said, being able to accept others, learning how to agree to disagree without being disagreeable. Those are the skills that they need so that they can have a basic conversation, so that they can see themselves not as being dominant or superior over anybody. And so thank you very much. And that's for everybody that sat here and listened to me talk. It's something when you're watching the faces and you're hoping that, whatever you're saying is resonating with somebody. But I really appreciate you taking the time, to listen to me, to hear some of the things that I've said. I know that when you all are speaking and I'm listening in on some of our other meetings, I'm enjoying it so much, because each of you, it just seems so much, so wise, and it just tells me that everybody has something to offer. Everybody has something to offer.
One of the things I think the last year has taught us that maybe we didn't realize before is that you can teach quite powerful Aikido via this medium, just talking as we are. And one of the things I think I will be doing post-COVID, when we go back to the mat in a normal way, is I'm going to make sure that I actually broadcast live lessons, so that people from whoever want to join in can. I'm not sure if it'll be successful, but I'm going to do it. And as Paul said, you've really captured the inside of the shell rather than technique. And I think it makes what you're offering more powerful. And I think maybe we should get a fund together to make sure that you're putting together a body of lessons that people can access. Because I think you really got something important there, Rick. And I'd love to see that be recorded for others to share now, but also for posterity.
Well, I'll tell you this, Quentin, if God sends the resources, then it gets done. It gets done. As I said, generally, I don't have to worry about where I'm going to be next, because he always sends the resources when it's time to do that next thing. So I appreciate that.
I wouldn't say I'm God, but I do happen to sit on the board of Aiki Extensions, and we do have seed grant money, and I think that would be a very worthy use. I'm looking at the two other board members and
well, thank you.
That would be a good thing to do. So I think we'll be talking about that. Okay, I want to open it for a final comment if anyone's got one, but otherwise, Hugh, please. Unmute though. Unmute, my friend. Yep, you're unmuted. You need to turn your volume up though, because we still can't hear you.
Turn it up.
Yeah, you're coming through a little bit more.
Okay, sorry about that.
Brilliant.
I mean, it's such a brilliant story tonight and a brilliant philosophy. And it is unique, but we've also heard other great stories. And in mind, one of the things that weighs on my mind slightly is that these great experiences and stories are forged from from very difficult situations, if you will. They're forged from crisis, they're forged from pain, they're forged from very difficult situations. And yet Aikido is at a level beyond all that. Is it possible to even deliver on something like this without that hard background?
I don't think that all of the things that are forged from crisis. Some people come to Aikido or to any martial art, just looking for a challenge or looking for camaraderie, something to be part of. Some people don't know that they're even on a journey to discovery. And so, yeah, I don't think that it's about the crisis. I think that it's just about the journey. You fall into things. You don't even know that you have a problem. You don't know that you only have this one perspective of the world until you're placed into situations with other people and you learn of other perspectives. And so you don't know how you feel about something sometimes. And Aikido, at least the way that I view Aikido, or I teach it, because people teach it different ways, it is to open yourself up to possibilities, open yourself up to experiences, open yourself up to new feelings, to learn, to find a passion, to find something inside of yourself that you want to share, because we share energy, and so I think that it's different. I've never told myself that a person has to come from a painful background, because some of the students that have most needed help, come from some affluent families, and you would think that their lives are perfect. And then you find out that it's not, that they've been sad, or that they've held on to something. They've been sheltered, they've sheltered themselves and haven't opened up to experience life, because they weren't trusting. Aikido teaches you how to trust. You trust. And so, yeah, so it's not necessarily crisis that it comes from, but that's a part of it. So I've always thought that Aikido is for everybody, because it is inside of everybody already.
That sounds like a good finishing line to me. So thank you so much on behalf of us all for taking the time to share your work. A brilliant example of what we can do with Aikido if we have a mind to. Yeah, just thanks. A big thanks, and thanks to everyone as usual for being here.
Well, thank you for allowing me this space, Quentin. I really appreciate it. It's another blessing, from God. You said that you're not God, but you are a vessel. So I really appreciate it. You allowing him to use you for this. And I look forward to future meetings. And I know that you guys have my information if you ever want to, contact me or talk, or, get to me through Aiki Extensions. I'd be glad to talk with anybody about anything. So thank you again.
Rick, Quentin's
Thank
vessel.
you.
Thank you very much.
Is usually
Go on, Piers, I didn't hear that. You weren't.
I said your vessel is usually full of some wine or alcoholic drink.
And I'll go off and have one of those now, I think. It's something to celebrate.
That was a great session, Rick. Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Sensei.
I just want to tell you I miss you.
We're talking soon.
Okay. Guys,
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you. Bye.
Very much.
Bye all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
ありがとうございました。バイバイ。